speak here is because it's a tradition that the person who takes a church sermon will stay on this side and on the other side. So I dare not break with the tradition. It's very nice to be here. We are home. We've been in Canberra for 2-3 weeks. We've attended the church twice over there, and previous to that, a number of times. But it was never felt like in Wollongong. This is certainly our home here, so we are coming home. So please don't say goodbye. It's very hard to say goodbye. When neighbor asked me to take the service today, that was some time ago, I was thinking, what topic should I talk about? Then later on, I thought to myself, very often in Sabbath school, I mentioned to our class that the Lord has been leading us. The Lord has been good to us. The Lord has been merciful and gracious to us. But how do you know? If I don't tell you what He did to us, to me and my family, how would you know that the Lord has been good to me and my family? And so I decided, maybe I should tell you what the Lord has done to my family and myself. Before we continue, shall we bow our heads for prayer? Our Father who is in heaven, this morning we want to acknowledge your love and your mercy because they endure us forever. Father, we thank you because you have called us back from the wilderness into your fold as your children. We, as members of the family of God. And this morning as we worship you, we pray that may we worship you in spirit and in truth. Father, I pray that may the congregation and the families that they represent be richly blessed as we worship you together. For these blessings we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. I begin with my childhood years. I don't think many of you knew that I was a terrible boy when I was a little boy. I won't tell you too many because my memory is not very good. But one incident I remember very well. That was, I had a very thundering temper as a young boy. And once, my brothers, I guess I quarreled with my brothers, and I was so enraged. You wouldn't know what I did. I took a pair of scissors. My mother used to do some sewing, so she had a pair of scissors lying around. I took her pair of scissors, and I took my brother's shirt, which he had to wear to go to school, and I cut holes in the shirt. And of course, I was in trouble. So I ran away because I knew I would be suffering a bad thing. I ran away. So my elder sister chased after me and got me back, and she cried because I was such a naughty boy. And you know what happened, of course. I suffered a little bit of beating. And many other incidents happened. And afterwards, I grew up bigger. I went to school. So I came back home from school with some classmates, and we came across somebody's garden, and there were some fruits on the fruit tree. What do? Climb over the fence, and we stole some fruit tree. But the fruits were not ripe, so they were quite bitter. So we threw them away, and then we went off. And many things happened. I was a derelict. I was a poor fella. And in school, I did not really want to study. I didn't know what was studying. And so I didn't do very well. I remember one particular incident when the teacher gave us a test. Everyone in the class passed except Ang. I was the only one who failed the test. And the teacher was very angry. He said, look, this test, everyone must pass. Why do you fail? You must not have studied. You must not have paid attention in class. And so he asked me to stay behind. I stayed behind, Went home, the elders asked me, why did you come home late? Why do you come home late? I said, oh, well, I told a lie. I didn't dare to tell them that, look, I was detained. Yes, I was very bad. But I did not know what happened. But now think back and look back and reflect it in my life, I think God has a plan for me. Because suddenly and without anything happening, when I was in year 5, I turned over a new leaf. I suddenly became keen to study. So I did very well in my study actually. So I went to secondary school, and I was in Chinese speaking, Chinese medium school, where they taught and we learned in Chinese language, all the subjects we learned, except one subject that was taught in English, and that was English itself. And I went to this secondary school, year 7, and my behavior was not really improving. I like to join the gangs of young kids and join them in troubles and all those things. But that year end, the students had an uprising against the teachers. Can you imagine that? Students want to fight against the teachers. That was during the last day of the school. And so the school was closed down. And my elder said, well, this boy has to change school. And there were many schools near to where I live, government schools, English school. They said, look, let him go to English school. This Chinese school is not teaching him well because they were under the influence of communism. Okay, so I was supposed to go to an English school. Lo and behold, they said, well, why don't you send him to Sun Hill School? That was the furthest school from where I live. Sun Hill School was 3 miles from where I live. And that was the farthest, because in those days, 60 odd years ago, you can imagine that the town where I live was very small. And so the outskirts of the town was 3 miles from the center of the town. I somehow live in the center of the town. So Sunny Hill School was actually a Seventh-day Adventist school. And we had to pay a lot of money for school fees. You go to government school, you pay $3 a month. In this school, you have to pay more than $10 a month. Anyway, they said, look, go there. So I went there. And the classmate said one day to me, hey, and they call me Yang Ang. In those days, they call me Yang Ang. Yang Ang, would you like to come to Sabbath school tomorrow? It was a Friday afternoon. We have afternoon classes. And I said, oh, okay, I'll come. So I went with them. I came back the next week. They said, would you like to come again? I said, okay, let's go. And so from there on, I attended the Sabbath school and then church from week to week. And 2 years later, there was an evangelistic meeting conducted in the town by the church. And classmates and I attended the meeting, and we by then we knew a little bit of Seventh Adventist teachings and Christianity. So that evangelistic meeting to us was no stranger. So we were able to absorb what the preacher was preaching. He happened to preach in Mandarin, and he was an American. So he attracted a lot of people because they said, this man, there was no equal. He speaks like a Chinese. He speaks Mandarin like he is a Chinese. So they came. And anyway, we attended the meeting. And towards the end of the meeting, the preacher gave an altar call. We were sitting together as a group of classmates. And I vividly remember one of our classmates, we sat together. We asked him to come with us. He could not. With tears in his eyes, he said, I can't. Why? My mother objects to it. And that's it. I couldn't understand why your mother has to object that. Later on, I realized why, how it feels to be meeting opposition. Because later on, then I realized my family members knew that I actually went to church and wanted to be a Seventh-day Adventist. My father was the first one to say no. He was very angry. He didn't like it. My mother was very good to me. She just kept quiet. She didn't say anything. And so I knew that there was opposition. I didn't really know what to do. But anyway, I left it as it is. So life went on as usual until year 9. Towards the end of year 9, the principal was doing something in my classroom and I was there. And so I helped him. And he was working and we were working together, and halfway he said, "Young Ang, have you considered baptism? There's one at the end of the year. Would you like to be baptized?" I said, I didn't say anything, because when he spoke to me about this, I immediately thought of my father. I knew he would object. So what do? I went home. I did not tell my father about that. I didn't tell anyone about that. And life went on as usual. I suppose if nothing happened, I wouldn't have been baptized. And I'll be like all those out in the street without God and without hope. But somehow, the Lord has worked out a plan. Very interestingly, a little bit later, my father said to me, I did not talk to him about religion at all for quite a long time. He said, "Young Ang, you want to join the church, I will not object. You go ahead and be baptized as a member of your church." It came to me as a surprise, as a shock, as a very pleasant surprise, because I never expected my father would say that to me. And so I was very, very happy that it happened that way. And so I was baptized at the end of the year. Little did I know, of course, then I was young. I never knew that it was God who actually changed my father's mind. And you said, "Look, man, you are just wishful thinking." But this could be a coincidence. But if there are many coincidences that happen in your life, it is no more a coincidence. So I'll tell you about a few others that happened. It's quite interesting, actually. Anyway, I was baptized, and I continued my studies. My time is short, so I cut off a lot of details. I finished my HSC. I applied, before I finished, set for the examination, I applied for a scholarship. I wanted to be a teacher. I like to be a teacher. So I applied for the scholarship. And in the meantime, the result of the examination wouldn't be out until 3 months later. So the next year, the school was to start. And so the principal of Sunny Hill School and I said, "Look, maybe Young Ang should be teaching in the school." So I taught in the school. Result came out, I passed, and some more news came. I got a telephone call. The scholarship people said, "Hi, you got the scholarship. You come for the meeting and you get ready to go very soon." Now, that was the dilemma. Because I was teaching in the school, now I have to go to study. So I talked to the principal. The principal said, "Well, why don't you stay with us? You teach for a year and we will send you to Avondale." The scholarship actually would send me to Kuala Lumpur, the capital of Malaysia. And if you go there, you will receive allowance every month. You don't pay anything. You live in a dorm and they give you money to spend, which was very good. If you go to Avondale, you have to work because they only pay 75% of your fees and boarding. You have to come up with the other 25%. Anyway, I considered and I said to the principal, "Okay, I'll stay back." And so I stayed back. The following year, I was supposed to come. The principal said, look, man, no one can take your place. We don't know what to do. Now, I could have come. But I said, well, if this is the case, I'll stay for 1 more year. So he said, oh, you're very kind. It's very good of you. Anyway, I stayed for 1 more year. And after that, I came. The Avondale years was a wonderful period for me, actually, because it was here that I learned a lot, not only from textbook, but from associating with people. We live together in the dormitory. We learn to associate with each other, to handle your friends and all this social life together. And more than that, we met people who have cast a lot of influence upon us. For example, in Avondale, because I told you that I was to come up with 25% of the fees and all those things, so I had to work during the holidays. And it happened that I was working as a cleaner. To clean the windows and these places, you receive the highest pay. So that was all right. So I did the cleaning. And the lecturers passing by, he would stop and say, hello, Ang. They call me Ang in Avondale. Hello, Ang, how are you? I said, oh, I'm well, thank you. Then he stopped and checked for a while. Then he goes away. And then someone else came by and talked to me. I said, that's very nice. You as the lecturer, you are willing to stop by and talk to a student who is a cleaner. That means something. So I was quite happy that I live in such an environment. And in the same college, we learned to know about so-and-so. He was actually the best car salesman in Perth. He got the call. He threw away his career and came to Avondale and studied theology. And that fellow, he was actually an engineer, having a master's degree. He threw away his engineering career. He came to Avondale and studied theology. So there must be something in them that God saw good to make use of them. So they became pastors, ministers. And there was someone who was not performing very well at college. He just merely passed. But he told us a very interesting story, a very inspiring story. He was on fire for God. And so he went out and did Bible studies. He came across a boy, a young man, who actually had a very good career in Newcastle. That young boy was driving a car, and the car was painted red, and he drove the car like a jack. But after they studied for a while, the young man said to him, he said, look man, Jack, do you think I should keep my car? Do you think I should sell my car? You know, it doesn't look nice if I continue to drive this car, don't you think so? Jack, by the way, his name is Jack Lang. He's one of the ministers now. And he said, well, you can continue to keep your car, I don't care. I don't think God will care. Okay, so he kept his car. But after a few weeks, Jack discovered that his car disappeared, and he drove a Holden, equivalent to our Commodore today. It was a Kingswood, so not so posh now. That's strange. Anyway, sometime later he said, Jack, look, my girlfriend, what happened? What's wrong with your girlfriend? You know, my girlfriend is very modern. Well, there's nothing wrong with a modern girl. Oh, I mean, I don't feel comfortable. Jack said, why do you worry about that? You know, leave her alone. She's your friend. You treasure her friendship, don't you? Yes, but Jack said, never mind. You can keep your girlfriend. God will not care. I mean, God will not worry too much about that. And sometime later, he told Jack, I have broke up with my girlfriend. He said, why? He said, I just felt that, look, man, a Christian lifestyle is not compatible with her lifestyle, so we broke. And that was an inspiring story, I thought. By the way, I said that whatever environment in Adventist actually influenced us as students. One of the things that influenced me was this. When I came here and worked in the university, I came across the cleaner every morning. I came to the university early and I met him every morning. He was sweeping. And every morning I met him, I said, "Good morning." I didn't know his name. I said, "Good morning." You know how did he respond to me? I was not there. Never mind. I came back another day and somebody just passed by him. He was nobody. Who cares about you? You are just a cleaner. I'm a lecturer. I'm a professor, whoever. Students won't care about him. I continue to say to him, "Good morning," every day. You know what happened? One day I came to the university and he was sweeping. He looked up and he saw me. He said, "Good morning." So that was good. So he responded. And that was something that I learned from Adventist College. So I always greet these people. And that was good. Anyway, I finished my study. I went back to Malaysia, to Sunny Hill. I started working and I got married. I will not tell you the story of my marriage since my time is very, very short. But anyway, we had children. We had 2 children. And as the children grew, every now and then I kept thinking about their future. The reason for that was because in Malaysia, the government said very clearly, in this country, meritocracy has no place here. Meaning to say, if you are good, you will not necessarily be promoted in your work. The reason is, it was a very racially biased nation. And if you are a Malay, you will go very high. If you are a non-Malay, you wouldn't, no matter how you try. That's one reason. The next reason was examinations were conducted on Sabbath. And the most important paper, English compulsory paper, was always on the Sabbath. And we thought, if my son were to sit for the exam, he will have to miss the paper and he will never get the certificate. And what can we do? The only way we could do was to send him to Avondale. And we talked about that. I said to Amy, I said, "Look, when I'm 55, I can send Lyndon to Avondale. I'll get all my superannuation. In Malaysia, it's called EPF, Employees Provident Fund. I will take all my superannuation and I will be able to send him to Avondale. And when Russell is ready for college, we will sell away our house and we will be able to send him to Avondale, because we could not hope to send our 2 children to a university in Malaysia, because they would have failed the exam by refusing to sit for the compulsory paper. So we thought, look man, this is bad. And that was a dilemma. We didn't know what to do. We really didn't know what to do. And suddenly I received a letter from Bruce Law. Some of us know Bruce Law. While I was at college, Bruce Law was my lecturer. And we developed a very good friendship with each other. He said, "Ang, there is a position in University of Wollongong. I am not sure whether you would like to come. It's a teaching fellow, half-time. You can come, apply for a permanent residence visa, and then the only stipulation is you must go for further study. You will keep the position half-time, and the other half-time you will do some higher studies." I said, "Okay, I'll do that." So I applied. We are thinking, we talked about that. Well, that would be an opening for our children. So I applied. Unfortunately, the position was given to someone else. So I missed. So what to do? Well, if you know God well, nothing to worry. But we were worried what to do next. And sometime later, Bruce wrote again, "Look man, the position is now open." Why? the person who got the position did not come. He didn't turn up. And so the position is now re-advertised. So if you want, you still can apply. So I said, okay, I will apply. And I got the position. So they offered me a half-time teaching fellow for 4 years. And the university said to me, wrote to me saying, you now should apply through the Australian High Commissioner in High Commission in Kuala Lumpur for a permanent residence visa. Oh, that's very nice. So I did. But they said no. Why? They said, well, this has to be a full-time 5-year position before you can get a permanent residence visa. So I communicated with the university. The university said, no, she doesn't know what she's doing. I'll talk to them. We have done this many times. You will get it. So she communicated with KL, Australian High Commission. And then he called me. He said, everything is now fine. You should be able to continue with the application. And the Malaysian side of the Australian High Commission also communicated with me. Said, yes, you can continue. So we continue to proceed with the application further. And for a few months, there was no news. What is happening? And yet we cannot communicate with them because the High Commission said, you don't call us, we will call you. If you call us, your application may be delayed. So, can't do anything. Just wait. Waited. New Year came. I think sometime in February, I received a telephone call from the Malaysian side, the Australian High Commission in Kuala Lumpur. The lady said, Mr. Eng, yes, I'm sorry to inform you that what has transpired when we last talked does not happen now. I said, what? He said, your application is not approved. My world was crumbling down. What am I going to do? So I asked her, what is the best thing I should do? She said, well, you go and tell your employer to ask them to give you a 5-year full-time position. Oh, okay, thank you. How could your employer do that? I don't think they would. Anyway, this is what she said. So I communicated with the university. I said, the Australian High Commission told me to tell you that unless you give me a 5-year full-time position, they will not give me a permanent residence visa. It was Mr. Rosswater then. He was furious. I said, well, we can't do much. So sometime later, he communicated with me. He said, look, actually before that, before he said, oh, well, we can't do much. And he said, look, man, that position is very hard because first of all, we must see that there is a position available, number one. Number two, the dean of the faculty must approve. So without that, we can't give you the position, can't offer you that position. So, well, I was hanging. Anyway, I just waited, and a few weeks later, he called. He said, look, we do have a position for you. It is only 4 years. It's a full-time lecturer's position, but 4 years. Would you take it? Well, I said, look, man, 4 years? That means to say I will not get a permanent residence visa. And if you don't get the permanent residence visa, you will lose a lot of those advantages like Medicare and many other things. And university, since I have committed to actually do further studies, I have to pay full fee. If you get the permanent residence, you don't pay full fees. You only pay half. So it will be a lot of money on my part. And if I don't have Medicare, I have to get private medical insurance, which cost me $160 a month in those days. But anyway, I said, look, put one foot in the door first. So I said, yes, I'll take it. He said, it will not be a permanent residence position, you know. I said, well, I'll take it and see what happens in the future. So I said, okay. The employment letter will arrive shortly. The employment letter will arrive shortly. I said, okay. So I went back and waited, and it did not come. So I called Bruce. I said, Bruce, can you check for me? They told me it will come, but it has not come for a few weeks now. Bruce said, well, you know, it should come. Everything is in trend. Everything is in the pipeline. I believe you will get the employment letter soon. Okay, I waited. So while I was waiting, one day I was actually at the kitchen sink, washing or whatever, preparing to cook. This I did not tell Amy. I tell you now, this is the first time I tell anyone. I prayed to God. I said, Lord, if you help me to get the permanent residency when I go to Australia, I will give the church all I have in my EPF. That is my superannuation in Malaysia. That was a promise to him. 2 weeks later, a letter came from the university. I opened up the letter. We offer you a 5-year full-time lecturer's position. I recall the Bible has a few verses of assurance for us. I'd like to share with you. Then I did not know the implication of what the Lord has said to His people. But today, let us share it together. First of all, I'd like to refer you to Isaiah chapter 41. Verse 13. The Lord said to the children of Israel, for I hold you by your right hand, I, the Lord your God, and I say to you, don't be afraid. I am here to help you. He first helped me to change my father's mind so that I could become a child of God. In fact, there's something else I did not tell you. I'm running out of time. If I can indulge you a little more of your time. Actually, when I came to Avondale, the Lord had provided a number of helpers along the way. I went to Singapore. My former teacher actually lived there. He helped me to buy all the necessary clothing that I needed to go to Avondale. When I arrived at the Sydney airport, before I arrived, a church member said to me, Yang Ang, my daughter and her husband will be there to wait for you. So they waited for me. And we stayed there for a weekend. On Sunday, I was supposed to go to Avondale, but on Friday night, actually on Sabbath, a friend from Avondale came down and brought me back to Avondale. So my journey from home to Avondale College was smooth all the way. The Lord helped me. The Lord provided helpers along the way. And I'd like to also share it with you, Isaiah chapter 65. Hang on, what happened? Isaiah chapter 65, verse 24. The Lord said, I will answer them before they even call to me. While they are still talking about their needs, I will go ahead and answer their prayers. The Lord answered my prayer, our prayer. So I got this letter. So I called this time I was a bit bold. Now I was quite brave because the time was short. It was about April then. So I called the Australian High Commission in KL. I said, look, I received this employment letter. What do I do now? The lady said, well, you write to Mr. Ryan, I think it's John Ryan, and you tell him that this has come and you like to proceed with your application. So I did. And later on, letter from the High Commission came asking me to do my medical checkup, which we did, and then we waited. And you see, anyone who wanted to go to come to Australia from Malaysia, you will have to go to Kuala Lumpur and have an interview with the Australian High Commission. I waited for that call, but it never came. And we were running short of time. I had to be here for the July session. Oh, what happened? So I called them again. And the lady said, oh, you should contact so-and-so. So I contacted so-and-so. This so-and-so was a lady, and she was very kind. She said, look, you send your passport by courier to me, and we will endorse it and send it back to you by courier. And you will proceed from there to Australia. That's very interesting. I was prepared to go to KL for the interview, and I didn't have to do that. They just cut it off. So we came to Australia, but there was one condition. They said, you can go, but on temporary visa, while we check on your criminal record. They had not done the criminal record check yet, not fully. So I said, okay, I'll go. So I came here. They instructed me, the moment you arrive in Australia, you proceed with the application with the immigration department, which I did. And the immigration department the lady was very kind. He said, we will do it as quickly as we can. This afternoon, I'll fax it to Kuala Lumpur, and we'll see what happened. 2 weeks later, I got the permanent residence visa. Our family all got it. I praise the Lord. It's wonderful. And I did not know what happened. Only after I arrived in Australia, a few weeks later, then I discovered the reason why there was a position available was the lecturer who was holding that position resigned. He just resigned and went to Bond University. And the department said, look, we are short a lecturer. And then they said, this man is coming and he needs this position. Why don't you give it to him? And the department head went to see the dean. They happened to be good old buddies. And the dean said, yes, why don't you do that to him? You know, that will save us a lot of problems. So for that reason, they offered the position to me. You see how God was leading in our lives? First of all, I was so disappointed because I did not get, I was not successful in my first application. I thought, what happened, you know? Actually, God purposefully delayed this first acceptance for a number of months. If I was selected and accepted and I came, I would be holding a teaching fellow's position. And that was only about half the pay of the lecturer's position. So God delayed a little bit. And then I blame the Australian High Commission for giving me so much trouble and so much heartache. I almost got heart attack because of the delay. Because she disappointed me so much. At first she said yes, and then suddenly she says no, when I was about to go. But now you think back, if the Australian High Commission did not say no, which delayed the procedure for a few months, that lecturer wouldn't have resigned, and that position would have given to me, and our family would not have come with enough money in the pocket to pay for all these sundry things. By the way, we still live from hand to mouth after I came. That's why Amy had to go and work. But anyway, that's another story. I will not say too much. I like to also share with you this text, Deuteronomy. Would you turn to Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 6, please. This is actually the counsel that Moses gave to Joshua when they chose Joshua to be the leader, and he said to him, he said, so be strong and be courageous. Do not be afraid and do not be panicked before them. Of course, in this case, Moses was talking about the enemies. But in our case, it was the circumstances. Don't be worried. Don't be afraid of that. obstacles in front of you, those difficult circumstances, for the Lord your God will personally go ahead of you. After reflecting on our lives, I believe God had personally gone ahead of me, despite of the fact that I was such a terrible fellow in my childhood. He personally went before us so that He will intervene to make sure that the application to the university was delayed, so that the application through the Australian High Commission was delayed, and so that I could actually get a position which actually was a continuing position. So I came, and of course, now look back, you know that the Lord says, I will go ahead of you. And God says, He will neither fail you nor abandon you. And God did not. How great the sinner that we are. God says, I will not abandon you, nor I will leave you. If you have difficulty, I will go ahead of you. Sometimes I may say no, I may delay, but finally the result is the best for you. And today I want to acknowledge that the Lord, His love and His mercy endures forever, and He is so gracious and so wonderful to us. And the only thing, I guess, between us as His children and people who are on the street is that when we reflect back our life, we can see that the Lord has been leading us all the way. Been leading us all the way of our life. The men on the street, they don't see it that way, and therefore they are rather go without God. But we see that, so we know that God is holding our right hand, and we can't go without Him. We can't go without Him. Yes. And another blessing that comes with being a child of God, 770, is that on the Sabbath, you return to become a sane person. For the rest of the week, you work like a mad dog. And on the Sabbath, you can forget about all those mad race. You come back and commune with God and with your fellow believers, and it keeps you sane. In fact, not only I feel that way, many other members feel the same way. It just keeps you sane, and that is a blessing without measure. There is no equal to having a Sabbath where you can actually contemplate on the love and the mercy of God. So, brothers and sisters, let's praise God for His good. His love and His mercy endures forever. Amen.